Hello and welcome back to another podcast with Miriam Khan at Raise Your Vibes. Today's podcast is quite a serious one. I've been dealing with this topic quite a lot actually, if you've been tuning in and listening in to some of the other podcasts. This one is, some of the things that an individual will do to try to snare you back into a relationship that is toxic or abusive or involves a narcissist. And the reason I'm saying it in that particular way is because many of the attributes and many of the traits, I guess, are very similar. I'm not necessarily labeling somebody as a narcissist just because they may have these particular cues or may have these traits, but there's often a tendency, there is that tendency of overlapping, and perhaps, there are times when we don't recognize that our individual that we're dealing with, our partner, our ex-partner, our ex-husband, wife, whoever it is actually abusive and is actually a narcissist and isn't anything that we should be associated with, but somehow we have got ourselves entangled into that, bittersweet relationship. And it's looking at how we would step out of that and step forward and move from that and heal from that. And often that's the really hard journey that we face, because these people make it very, very difficult to move forward. Quite a lot of people that I've been counselling, that I've been helping, dealing with, and experiences of my own as well. When coming out of a very, very dark place in your own marriage, you come across these traits and you sort of reflect upon them afterwards, that hold on a minute, they're exhibiting this particular behaviour pattern, and you only realise that when you step away and you have a clearer mind and clearer head. So let's have a look at some of the things that these individuals do. When we're in that relationship, it can be very sweet, can be loving, very caring, but also can be very controlling, very manipulative, very toxic. And we don't realise that, we're sort of driven to be this anxious individual that will do everything that other person wants from us because of the control. There's this power dynamic between us and between them. It's not necessarily the ego and the id, it's the control of this person has control over my life, over my being, over what I do, over what I say, over what I wear, where I go, who I can be around, the things that I eat, and so on. And when you are trying to, relieve yourself from this relationship and move forward and move on, and perhaps you've been very, very lucky to be able to do that, trust me when I say that individual will make your life hell, okay? So some of the things they do, obviously, one of the first things is starting to blast your phone out. I know that's a colloquial phrase, but what do I mean by blast your phone out? Well, I mean constantly ringing you, constantly texting you, constantly trying to get through to you on all different types of applications, to the point where you cannot breathe, okay? You can't escape. It loads up your anxiety even more, actually. You feel very panicky, you feel overwhelmed. There are times when some of those messages are love bombing messages. It includes perhaps pictures of your past. It might include pictures of your relationship together. It might include sweet, soft words spoken to you that remind you why you fell in love with them in the first place, why you encountered that relationship in the first place. And these are things that they will do to suck you back in, okay? My advice, block them on those aspects of social media. Okay, it's not always easy to do, especially if there are other smaller individuals involved, such as children. They will do things like calling your phone at random times of the night. They know your patterns, they know your sleeping patterns, they know where you should be, where you're at, where you work, and so on. And at times, they will do everything they can to manipulate it to the point where you are not sleeping, so calling you just before they know you're going to go to sleep, so that all night you don't sleep, you have anxiety, you are constantly maybe watching the door, watching who might come to your house, moving back the curtains and so on. They're triggering you, okay? Again, a simple thing to do is block your phone. That might sound easy, but these people do everything they can to maneuver around that, and they will do their best to get your number through other means. Now, you can block them on social media. Nowadays, it's very, very easy, but then block them on the main phone itself, so they can't actually phone in. Nowadays, there's such things, and I'm not giving people ideas, by the way, when I say this, but there's things on Viber, for example, where you can purchase a new phone. Quite simply, you can purchase a new number through different applications and pretend to be somewhere else in a different country. So be aware of that too. These individuals will block themselves through that, but will try very hard to use different applications to get in touch with you. Sometimes it can be very, very, very restrictive. You might have to totally, completely change your phone number. And also be wary of the people you give it out to. If you are in a very, 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 domestic, abusive, narcissistic, abusive relationship and you've left, and I've dealt with that myself, where, individuals have somehow managed to get that number despite only a small number of people having that number on their hand. For example, parents, relatives, and I mean close relatives that somebody would trust. Somehow that person has managed to get into it. Nowadays, things are on the cloud or on different aspects. There's a lot of social protection in regards to social media accounts, but people are wise. People can hack into iPhone accounts, they can hack into clouds, they can hack into certain different systems. So make sure also that whatever you have on your phone, whatever you have on your social media outlets is protected. This is not all from fear, by the way. None of this is through fear. It's about being wise, and it's about being alert, and it's about protecting yourself and protecting the people around you. At the end of the day, sometimes when you've left a narcissist or a very, very abusive person, you feel like you're on the run, and you do have that anxiety and you do have that fear because you feel like you're constantly watching your shoulder. Who's going to get me? Who's going to get me? Who's going to get me? That sort of, little fear, it might sound small and it might sound very naive. It might sound silly to some of you, but actually it's a real fear. Some people are running away literally with their life in their hands. If they'd have stayed in that abusive relationship, possibly they would have been coming out of that particular place in a body bag. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. So these scenarios are, real life situations where you have to be protective and you have to look after yourself and you have to be alert about the things that you're putting out there, but also being aware of what you can do to protect yourself. Okay? Some things individuals do is, when that gaslighting and gas bombing, love bombing, whatever you want to call it, doesn't work, and you've blocked them, you've gone silent, this actually makes them more crazy, believe it or not, because they can't control you, they can't get access to you, they can't manipulate you, they can't do anything they can to sway you back. And some of us we've been swayed back, we've gone back, and some of us have gone back many, many times, only to be having the same treatment over again. And we try to say that word no, we try to exonerate ourselves, we try to move forward. And again, like I said to you, this suck us back in. But it's about protecting you right now. Okay? So sometimes we feel, the word no is just not just enough. I know individuals have had to move countries, had to move workplaces, had to move several locations just to get rid of that toxic person, and they have done the whole protection thing. Sometimes they've tried to get restraining order, sometimes they've got the police involved, and sadly the police are not on that individual side. They'll say, for example, in a married couple scenario, it's a marital dispute, and they won't see the fact that there's a husband or wife that's battered, and clearly that person needs help, clearly they need some support, but they're not getting it. Okay, and we end up going back, we end up being stuck in that vicious cycle because nobody's helping us. The laws that are meant to be there to protect us, and often, sometimes, in some cases, it's not. Okay, so be aware of that. If you know someone in your family, that's going through this, don't be so judgmental. Be understanding, because it's leaving trauma, and it's not easy to do. Okay, now other things they do. At times when they've done the whole turning up at your workplace, we have to try sometimes to record these things. Sometimes we might not be thinking alert. We might not be thinking wise, Make sure you've got a trusted friend. If you are someone who's going to build a court case against this other individual, there might be proof on your phone And if you keep changing phones, or perhaps you're, getting someone to help you, make sure it is someone that is a trusted friend. If you're going to, other than your lawyer, if you're going to give, very intimate pictures where perhaps there's proof of domestic violence or assault or battery or grievous bodily harm, make sure it is with someone that you completely trust, someone that's not going to betray you, and make sure there are dates, there's times that person's logged it almost on a calendar. If the police are not going to take action at that particular point, then at least you have a record of events. Sometimes these things can be hospital records. And again, I have been in court cases myself where some of that is dismissive in court and some of it is. All right, so it's a matter of, tracking the record, tracking dates, tracking times, but having someone that helps you do that. Okay. For us as individuals that have gone through that, it can be very traumatic to look at those things. We don't necessarily want them on our phone and on our cloud. We want to heal, We don't want to keep looking back at those particular triggers, and they are triggers to us. We don't want to look at those triggers. We want to move forward with our lives. We want to heal from it. So sometimes removing those and giving them to an individual that we trust is also quite helpful to help us move forward. It can often be a reminder of why we shouldn't go back as well. Okay, so it's a two-pronged process. Other things that individual might do when you've left, they get their friends involved, they get their families involved, they try and intimidate obviously your family, or they cause a nuisance or a pain with your family because they know full well that that's your weak spot. So for example, turning up at your family's home, ringing your parents, maybe harassing them. And these things, you get to a point where your parents also, or family members also, have to sing from the same hymn sheet, and they have to do the same thing, where they say, look, sorry, this is not happening. The relationship issues between you and the other individual, I choose not to get involved. Or if it's more serious, they also block their number, they also block their details, or they call the police, And even if that person is very smart, and some of these people are, these abusive people, very smart at manipulating. For example, they might turn up near your property but not on your property. Okay, so they might be going up and down your street in a car, intimidating you, and they know you can see them and they know you see them. But the law, they've not done anything technically wrong because they're not on your property. They've not threatened you, they've not called you, they're quite within their right to be outside on a main public domain. However, they're only there because they want to intimidate you. Do you understand what I mean? So these are some very horrible things that people can do, all to try and lure the person that's left them, the abused person, to come back. And, it just shows you the depths that they will go to try to get that, person back. Okay? One classic is getting, family and friends to ring the abused person and say, go back, they're sorry, they want to make amends, they've changed, they will not do this again, the family apologise, and so on. And it gets to a point where you're thinking to yourself, I really don't need to hear this rubbish, because the best thing for me is change behaviour. Words can be very empty from some people. Words are very empty to someone who's been abused, because we know when we get sucked back in, it's the same thing all over again. Okay? And nothing does change. It just starts off sweet again, and they start controlling, they start being vindictive, they start being abusive, and that pattern continues, and we also allow it to continue. Now, all in all, you've got to look at these particular traits and think, why is this individual doing that? Well, they're feeling very powerless, that's for sure. Okay? And in order to, exonerate their power mode, their ego, and to give them a trip and to make them feel that you the man or you the woman, whatever it is. Because remember, it's a two-pronged process. It's not necessarily one particular gender that does this. It can be both that does this sort of behaviour. You have to just step back and look at the manipulation that's been taking place. Okay? And you have to look at the fact that, you're trying to do things to protect yourself and move forward. And the best thing is to heal. The best thing is to meditate. And the best thing is to step forward, and keep reminding yourself, that you are worth that self-love and that self-care. that the other individual doesn't have power over you. The other individual doesn't have any sense of control over you. And the minute you unblock, the minute you speak to them, sometimes, unfortunately, we have to if the children are involved, that we give a little bit of power back, and we lose that power dynamic by allowing that individual to have that control. And it takes a very, very strong person to be able to say, no, that isn't going to roll with me. This isn't going to happen. You're necessarily not looking at this in the right way. And I don't want to be in that relationship again. I don't want to be with you again. And I know myself that sometimes, unfortunately, people go back for financial reasons, situations where, unfortunately, they can't see any other way out. They're stuck in a rut, okay? And sadly, lots of people do go back for various reasons. But the main thing is knowing the signs and knowing what to do to go forward, and knowing how to spot the things that they're going to do to try and lure us back in, and to remain powerful and in our strength. And we have to keep saying like a mantra, and I've said it to myself many, many, many times. You are powerless. I am powerful. You have no control over me. You might say different affirmations such as, I am beautiful, I am kind, I am a kind, caring soul, I am lovable, I am God's child, I am from spirit, I am from soul. Whatever your affirmation is, it depends on your religious belief, on your cultural belief. Not all of us have the same belief system, and it's looking at how you would be positive in that aspect to get yourself through this, because this is not a small scenario, it's a massive game changer. It starts with you though. Okay, it starts with you, and it continues to stay with you until you remove yourself from that toxic trait, until you remove yourself from the toxic people that are causing your life to be hell. And you will start to be happy again, and you will start to move forward again. But it takes a lot of hard work, let's put it that way. And a lot of it starts with yourself, You have to untangle that spider's web. You have to untangle the pain. You have to untangle the trauma. You have to really work on those deep issues of why you remained in that relationship. What was it about you? What was it about your vulnerable state? What was it about your marriage, your relationship that made you stay? What were the principles that made you stay? What was it about you and your lack of self-worth that made you stay? What was it about this idea of failure? Maybe you didn't want your marriage to fail. Whatever it was, there'll be different dynamics that made you stay. But the main thing is working on the reasons why you leave and why you move forward and why you're going to heal. They're the things you focus on. They're the things that drive you forward. They're the things that are going to give your life passion again. And you will be happy again. Don't go jumping into a different relationship. Don't go jumping into other people's drama. Work on you. Work on your trauma. Work on your wounds. Work on healing yourself. Work on your body. Work on healing your trauma. Work on healing the relationships around you. Maybe there's friendships as well that you have to say goodbye to because of this toxic situation you're in. Either way, it's one of joy in the end. You do turn into Sarah O'Connor, as I've said before, from the Terminator. You do turn into her, and you do end up being resilient, and you do end up being very much so where you've got your rose-tinted glasses off and you're able to see people for who they are. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It means you're clued up, you're wise, and you can spot people for who they are behind you, in front of you, the side of you, and so on. Wherever anybody is on their journey of healing and trauma, I wish you peace, and I wish you love, and I wish you harmony, and I wish you blessings, because this is not easy. It's not easy to move forward from. And, there are lots of other signs. There's lots of other triggers that people will cause to try and make us go back. Don't hear them. Don't listen to them. Keep moving forward. Sending you blessings, sending you hugs, sending you socially distant hugs. But I'm sending you a lot of peace and a lot of love and a lot of blessings to help you move forward on your journey. God bless. Take care. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in.